The speed that could not be seen. Stay with this story until the very end, because the final truth about speed in World War II is not what history textbooks taught you. If you care about untold decisions, forgotten pilots, and the moment America quietly changed the future of air combat forever, subscribe now and don't look away. This story only works if you hear all of it. The war was already decided in the newspapers when the most dangerous race of World War II truly began. By early 1944, headlines talked about Allied momentum, German retreat, and inevitable victory. But inside locked hangars and unmarked airfields across the United States, victory still felt fragile, because American commanders had discovered something unsettling. They were winning the war, but they might lose the sky. Speed was becoming the deciding factor. Not firepower, not armor, speed. Every mile per hour meant the difference between interception and escape, between life and flame. And the United States had a problem no one dared say out loud. They did not know who was truly fastest anymore. Captain Daniel Mercer learned this truth in silence. Mercer was a test pilot, not an ace. No victory markings on his aircraft, no newspaper interviews. His job was simple: fly planes no one trusted yet, push them past what engineers promised, and report back if they survived. He had buried too many friends to believe in promises. On a cold February morning in California, Mercer stood on a runway that did not exist on any map. The aircraft before him looked wrong. Sleeker than a Mustang, narrower wings, an engine pushed beyond safe limits. There was no name painted on it, only a number. This was not a fighter meant for war. Not yet. This was an answer to a question the Army Air Forces were afraid to ask publicly. What happens when propellers reach their limit? The Mustang was fast, deadly fast, but engineers knew the truth hidden in data tables and broken test parts. The propeller itself was becoming a wall. As blade tips neared the speed of sound, efficiency collapsed. Vibrations tore engines apart, control surfaces stiffened. Pilots reported moments where the aircraft simply stopped listening. The sky itself was pushing back. Germany had noticed first. Intelligence reports whispered about jet prototypes, aircraft that climbed faster than anything with a propeller, aircraft that didn't need to dive to escape. At first, American leadership dismissed the rumors. Then pilots started dying, not in dogfights, in pursuits they could not finish. The fastest aircraft was no longer the one with the most kills. It was the one that decided when the fight ended. Mercer's aircraft roared down the runway, the engine screaming like it hated the air it was cutting through. As the wheels lifted, the vibration hit instantly. This machine was unstable by design. Engineers had sacrificed forgiveness for speed. At 10,000 feet, Mercer leveled off and pushed the throttle. The aircraft surged forward. His airspeed indicator climbed past anything he had ever seen in level flight. The controls grew heavy. The nose trembled, then steadied. The sky outside looked unchanged, but Mercer felt something shift. The sound of the air changed. Not louder. Sharper. Later, engineers would call it compressibility. At the time, Mercer called it fear, because for the first time in his career, he realized the enemy was no longer another pilot. It was physics. Back in Washington, speed charts were pinned to walls like battle maps. Every new aircraft was compared, measured, argued over. The P-51 Mustang, the P-47 Thunderbolt, the P-38 Lightning. Each had strengths, each had limits, and each was being quietly outpaced by ideas still trapped in blueprints. The fastest aircraft of World War II was becoming a philosophical question rather than a simple measurement. Was speed top velocity, or climb rate, or acceleration, or was it the ability to appear, strike, and vanish before the enemy could respond? No one agreed. That disagreement nearly cost America control of the air. In April 1944, Mercer was summoned to a briefing with men who did not wear pilot wings, civilian engineers, intelligence officers, a general who spoke softly and listened too much. They showed Mercer photographs taken over Germany. Blurry, indistinct aircraft shapes that did not match known fighters. These are not operational yet, the general said. But when they are, escort doctrine collapses. Mercer understood immediately. Bombers depended on fighters that could stay with them. Jets would not. Speed would break the system. The general leaned forward. We need to know what truly rules the skies when speed outruns doctrine. That was Mercer's new mission, not to test an aircraft, but to discover what speed actually meant in war. The next months blurred together. Flights at dawn, landings at dusk, aircraft that grew faster and more dangerous with every modification. Engines pushed until metal remembered it was mortal. Mercer recorded everything. Moments where the aircraft felt invincible, moments where it felt like a coffin with wings. Then, one flight changed everything. At altitude, Mercer dove to test high-speed stability. The aircraft accelerated beyond predicted limits. The controls locked. The nose refused to rise. The ground rushed up. Mercer did not panic. Panic wasted time. He cut power, adjusted trim, waited. At the last possible second, the controls came alive again. The aircraft pulled up screaming. He landed shaken but alive. Engineers studied the data in silence. They had crossed a boundary. Speed was no longer safe, but it was inevitable. While Mercer tested the edge of the sky, American pilots in Europe fought a different war. One where speed decided who lived long enough to become an ace. Some German aircraft escaped simply by accelerating away. Others died because they could not. The war was revealing an uncomfortable truth. Speed without control was useless. Control without speed was fatal. And somewhere between those extremes lay the aircraft that would truly rule the skies. Mercer knew it before anyone else admitted it. The fastest fighter of World War II would not be remembered for how fast it flew. It would be remembered for what it made obsolete. As summer 1944 approached, Mercer received orders stamped with urgency. A new aircraft was coming. The moment speed chose. See if you are still listening. Do not leave now. What happens next is the part history never slows down to explain. This is where speed stopped being a number and became a decision that reshaped the sky forever. The aircraft arrived at dawn, hidden beneath canvas and secrecy. It had no propeller. Captain Daniel Mercer stood motionless as the covers were pulled away. The machine looked unfinished, almost fragile, like a blade without a handle. Straight wings, air intakes where instinct said nothing should be. The engineers spoke in careful language, avoiding promises. This isn't about top speed, one of them said. It's about control after speed. Mercer understood. This was not a fighter built to chase. It was built to arrive first and leave untouched. America's first operational jet fighter was no longer a rumor. It was real. The timeline mattered. Germany's jet had already flown in combat, not in numbers, not decisively, but enough to terrify bomber crews. Pilots reported flashes of silver that crossed the sky faster than thought. Interceptors that appeared too late to stop and vanished too fast to punish. Speed had become psychological. Mercer climbed into the cockpit knowing he was behind the curve, and knowing this machine might close the gap. The first flight was cautious. Jets were honest in their danger. No vibration to warn you. No gradual failure. When they betrayed you, they did it all at once. Mercer advanced the throttle. Acceleration pressed him into the seat in a way propellers never had. The sound was smoother, relentless, like the sky itself was being pulled backward. At altitude, Mercer leveled off and pushed further. The aircraft did not fight him. It obeyed. The airspeed needle passed numbers that once lived only in dives. Controls remained responsive. The sky no longer pushed back. For the first time in his career, Mercer felt the future settle into place. This was what speed was meant to feel like. But the revelation came minutes later. The gauge dropped faster than his heart rate had risen. Jets drank time as greedily as they drank air. This aircraft could be the fastest thing in the sky for minutes. Then it would be a glider. Speed had not solved the war. It had introduced a new problem. Back in Washington, arguments erupted. Jets were fast but fragile, maintenance heavy, short-legged, dangerous to inexperienced pilots. They were not ready, some said. Not for mass deployment, not for a war that demanded reliability. Others argued the opposite. Speed had already changed everything. The question was no longer whether jets were perfect. The question was whether America could afford not to learn them now. Mercer was summoned again. This time the room was quieter. The general asked one question. Who rules the skies, Captain? Mercer did not answer immediately. He thought of the Mustang, escorting bombers across flak-filled skies, saving crews that would never know its name. He thought of thunderbolts diving like hammers, of lightnings climbing into thin air. He thought of German jets that arrived too late to change the outcome, but early enough to change the future. Then he thought of this new aircraft, fast beyond doctrine, unforgiving, brilliant, no single plane. Mercer finally said, "Speed rules moments, not wars." Silence followed. Then the general nodded. The final test came unexpectedly. In March 1945, intelligence intercepted reports of a concentrated jet defense forming near a vital industrial corridor. Bombers would pass through within days. Escorts could not match the interceptor's climb or dash speed. Mercer was given a choice: fly the jet as a demonstrator, or stay grounded and preserve the program. If he flew, the aircraft might fail publicly. If he didn't, bombers would face ghosts alone. Mercer chose to fly. The mission was not a dogfight. It was an interception. Mercer climbed ahead of the bomber stream, reaching altitude before German jets could position. When enemy aircraft appeared, they did not expect resistance at their speed. Mercer did not chase. He cut across their path. Speed, he realized, was not about being faster than the enemy. It was about being earlier than their plan. The German jets broke off, not destroyed, disrupted. Bombers passed. Losses were fewer than expected. The mission succeeded without a single confirmed kill. Mercer landed nearly out of fuel. History would never record his name. Weeks later, the war in Europe ended. The jet never entered mass combat. Too late, too new, too complex. Some would later argue it didn't matter. Mercer disagreed. Because after the war, everything changed. Propellers faded. Speed doctrines rewrote themselves. Training manuals erased assumptions that had ruled the sky for decades. And the fastest aircraft of World War II was no longer a specific machine. It was a turning point. Years later, Mercer stood in a museum hangar, watching children stare at aircraft, frozen in time. They asked guides which one was fastest, which one was best. The answers were always clean: numbers, records, charts. Mercer knew better. The aircraft that truly ruled the skies was the one that taught pilots how to think differently about speed, the one that proved velocity alone could not win, and that mastery mattered more than maximums. Speed had promised invincibility. War revealed its cost. The fastest fighter aircraft of World War II did not win by outrunning bullets. It won by outrunning old ideas. And in doing so, it handed the future to those willing to adapt, not just accelerate. As Mercer left the hangar, he looked once more at the sleek shapes suspended above the floor. They were beautiful, they were dangerous, and they were reminders that in every war, the true ruler of the skies is not speed itself, but the human courage to decide how it is used.
Moral lesson of the story. The true lesson of this story is that real power does not lie in speed or advanced technology alone. The fastest fighter aircraft of World War II was just a machine, but the real outcome depended on the courage, wisdom, and decision-making of the pilot who mastered it. Speed is a tool, but it is control, strategy, and understanding that determine victory or failure. In truth, the true ruler of the skies is the one who recognizes that every situation is unique, every moment is critical, and innovation only matters when humans adapt, master it, and apply it with intelligence. This story reminds us that the purpose of advanced machines and technology is not simply to overpower, but to empower human skill and judgment. Speed decided moments in World War II, but courage, mastery, and wisdom shaped history. Those who rely solely on speed may falter, but those who learn, adapt, and think strategically become the real rulers of the skies in the future.